You're listening to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice, where we honor the bravery of the first responders and the families who stand behind them. Real people, real stories, real heroes. This is 8158.
Welcome back to 8158 Stories of Sacrifice and part 2 of our conversation with Miranda, a seasoned first responder whose career has taken her from the front lines to the headset. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I highly recommend going back and starting there to hear about Miranda's incredible journey as a paramedic, her experiences in fire rescue and critical care transport, and the defining moments that shaped her career. In this episode, we're diving into the next chapter, her transition from fieldwork to dispatch, the challenges and rewards of being the voice behind the radio, and the critical thinking that goes into managing emergencies from behind the scenes. Miranda also opens up about the accident that changed everything and how she found a new purpose in the world of dispatch. She's got some powerful stories to share, so let's jump back in.
Moving on, you taught CPR and EMT basics for 5 years with an incredible 100% pass rate. Uh, what do you think made your students so successful?
So not every class had a 100% pass rate, but I'd say about overall we had about a 98% pass rate, which was still phenomenal.
Average.
Super proud of that. So yeah, it was about a 98% average. And, I just think it was because we were able, because of me and a buddy of mine, because I did it for a while by myself, and then he taught firefighter 1 and 2, and he would help me and I would help him. And one day we were like, why don't we just do a combined class and kind of see where that goes? And nobody in our area had ever done it. So I'm like, you know me, we gotta make our mark. So we did it. And I was really surprised with how many people. And I really think that it was just like him and I, we were great friends. We worked together and we just really kind of, you know, he was my left, I was his right. Like we worked really well together. So I think that we were just able to really teach in a way that they learned. So we were able to meet them where they were at. A lot of people go into it with the expectation of, I'm here, so I need you to be here. But these kids have never done this before, so you need to come down a few notches and be able to meet them where they're at and then step up with them. So I think that really helped that we were able to do that. Everybody learns different, and teachers need to be mindful of that, and also, like I said, get where they're at, teach on their level. Um, so, and just being able to adapt and had fun. Like we didn't sit in a classroom and read you a book. You can sit at home and read a book.
Right.
So there would be classroom time, but we were really interactive. We were really hands-on. We were always in the bay, or we were out back, or we were at the training center. Like we were always doing something hands-on, and always had a lot of fun. Like all of our students, they wanted to be there. Like they'd show up like pumped, ready to go. So I think that just helped us. That I mean, we just met them where they were at and grew with them. And
Right.
because for me, I have ADHD. I'm not sitting in the classroom while you're talking to me. I'll be counting the holes in the ceiling, playing, tic-tac-toe on my paper. So you have to keep me engaged. So that's was our goal. Let's keep them engaged. Let's do this hands-on is the best. And that's what we did. And we just had a great time with it. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, apparently it seemed like it worked. I mean, would you say 98% pass
Yep.
rate overall, like average?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that's
And a
phenomenal.
lot of our students were like, oh, so and so, like Adam from your class 2 years ago was telling me about it. And I couldn't wait to be old enough to do it. And we were like, well, heck, come on. And we also, there was, we actually got with a couple of the small locally owned businesses because obviously we can't do everything for free and
Right.
the books are expensive. Um, Now we could kind of refurbish or recycle the books through class, but obviously they come out every so often with new ones. But we couldn't have done it without our community either because they fed them, they sponsored books. So even these kids that just didn't have the money or they were from, a lower income, but they wanted to do something, nobody got turned away. And if you came to us and be like, I don't have the money, I don't know how to do it, cool, put your name down, we're going to figure it out. And then we would have a number And like I said, all these local owned businesses were just, they didn't hesitate to jump in and help us. And that was really heartwarming to see the community being so willing to make something happen for these young people.
That's kind of like the premise of this podcast is that we're trying to get a nonprofit started so that we can gain enough uh, capital to offer scholarships to new recruits, whether it's dispatch or fire, or EMS, or law enforcement, or whatever that they're trying to get into.
That's amazing.
Uh, this this was something that I think that my cousin would have wanted, so we decided that we wanted to try to do that because he was such a giving and loving person, and we just try to do this in his memory to kind of
Yeah,
keep his love alive.
that's right. There you go. I was going to say, keep them alive. And I think that's awesome. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it hits different, when there's a strong purpose like that behind it, when it's so meaningful and it's so personal. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah. To be honest, it's hard for me to step out of my comfort zone. I'm not a very social person.
Yeah.
Uh, I usually keep to myself, but this I think was a turning point in my life because my cousin meant a lot to me. He inspired me.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, um, it just kind of got me out of my shell.
And that's not easy to do. It's not easy to come out of that little shell where you know you're okay to come out and do that. So I commend you for that and keeping his name alive and not letting his death be in vain. That's very commendable. So, and I appreciate you for giving your time and your shining your light on public safety, because I don't think it's something that a lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, like it's just the cops. No, like our officers and deputies go through a lot, and oh, it's just a fire, but there's a lot that goes on, and sometimes they just kind of get misplaced. So it's nice to have that light shown and just know that like they're seen and they're heard and they matter.
Right. All of our first responders matter.
100%.
You know, and people don't realize it starts with you guys.
Mhm.
The call doesn't go directly to the police. It doesn't go directly to the EMS or the fire department. They go directly to you.
Yep.
And you guys are the ones that determine the situation and dispatch appropriately.
Right.
So you're basically the first line of defense there. I don't think people see it.
And I don't think they do either. They think that when they think responder, they think responding, like somebody who responds to the scene. But and without us though, you wouldn't have them, because who's going to tell them where to go? Who's going to get the information they need? Who's going to? So it's definitely it, like I said, it's challenging but it's rewarding, and I just wish more people really recognized really the toll that it can take on us and what we put into it.
Oh, absolutely. I can imagine it takes a huge toll on you guys, and what you're dealing with, what you have to go through.
It I will preach this and preach this, and it's across the board: dispatchers, law, fire, EMS, jail, whomever. I can't preach enough about self care,
Hmm.
because you see so much but I think like just in general, life already has a lot going on. Like I have to do this for my husband, my kids need to go here, and the animals have to go to the vet, and this has to be done, and this has to be done. I don't have time for me. Well, if you don't make time for you, you're really, really, really gonna burn yourself out. You're gonna get this compassion fatigue, um, and it's really gonna start affecting you. So if you don't take care of you, there's nobody's gonna be able to take care of them.
Right.
So you deserve, whether it's an hour for you to go get your nails done, whether you just want to go sit in your bathtub in the dark with a candle for an hour, do it. Like self care is so extremely important that you can be the best for everybody around you
Right.
and yourself. Obviously, you come number one.
Yeah. I mean, I can totally understand that because how can you help other people if you are not at your best?
Right, 100%.
you're physically and mentally incapable of taking care of yourself, then you can't take care of anybody else.
That's right. And I preach that and I preach that. And I think, and I can't speak from a man's perspective, but I think from a woman's, and you got your husband, you got your kids, you feel like you have to be everybody to everyone,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to be you to you first. And it doesn't matter what that looks like for you, getting on your Peloton and riding for 30 minutes, do it. They're going to survive. They've survived the last 10 hours without you. They're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Taking a shower by yourself, do
Right.
whatever makes you happy that just kind of lets you recenter and refocus and breathe a little bit easier. And I
Right.
think that's extremely important.
Exactly. Now, as someone who has lived and breathed emergency services, what advice would you give to someone, let's say, just starting out?
Ooh.
That's a big
Oh,
one.
it is a big one. Um, Remain humble. That's the first thing, because I don't care how high you get, you can be knocked right back down. Stay humble. And just be open and willing to learn. Don't ever, and this is a big one for people that I've trained, is don't doubt, just do.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it. Are you going to make a mistake? Absolutely. Are we going to learn from that? Absolutely. Are you going to fumble on the radio? No doubt about it. It's going to be fine, though. Do you know how many times I fumbled? I like to say I had a stroke on the air because I don't know what I said. It just came out gibber. But just jump in and do.
Right.
And like I said, just be willing, open, ready, and have that drive to learn. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, but you always have to take care of you and protect your mental health, because a lot of people they get into it and they're so ambitious, which I respect, but don't forget about you.
Right.
And there's this I think it came out of Nevada, I believe. Um, Stop the Slash is like a campaign with, law enforcement. They put the black slash over their badge. Um, Whenever you see a local fire department or EMS or air ambulance or law, you get that icon on Facebook with the slash. Stop the
Mm-hmm.
slash, because they're tired of hearing about public safety committing suicide
Yeah.
and harming themselves when they're not taking care of themselves, but they're also not provided with those resources that they need, or they don't. The stigma.
Right.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. If you've had a heavy call, talk about it. You know, don't come in here all, you know, Billy Badass thinking you can take on the world, because you can't. You're going to have a call that's going to rattle you. You're going to have a call that may trigger some traumas in your own life that you didn't realize you had, or that it would trigger. Um, and I've always encouraged my people, like, talk to me, because sometimes that's all you need to do is just get it off and feel heard and validated. And then a lot of times, for lack of better words, like, you're okay. You're
Right.
not carrying it. Um, Bad calls are going to happen, and that's something that's inevitable. And I don't think people realize how bad these calls can get. Um, and they can get pretty traumatic. Um, so it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to get these calls, and you'll hear things you can't unhear, and you need to process that and not bury it. So
Right.
that's what I would say, is come in humble, ready to go, but also self-aware that it's not all unicorns and rainbows here. There's a lot of really dark things that it will change your view on society and the things that humans are capable of.
It'll give you a different perspective, or
For sure.
just change how you feel about people in general.
And that's why I say, like, the monsters aren't under your bed. They're out there in society, and you're going to get these calls. You're going to hear something you don't want to hear. And again, that's not to discourage, that's just, you need to be self-aware of that. But when it happens, it's okay to be like, I need 5.
Mm-hmm.
I need 5. And that's why also, and dispatchers are really not included in this either, is CISM. And CISM is a crisis intervention stress management team. And They're a phenomenal team, but dispatchers aren't included in that. And I don't think that that's. I don't. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just they're not thought of, or they think, oh, it's just dispatch. I don't. I don't really know why. But they're a team that's called in when you've had a really really bad call, whether it be a line of duty death or firefighter, EMS, law, and it's just been a bad day. They're called in because they do a big debriefing with the whole team and they talk about it and they check everybody's mental state, but nobody checks on dispatch. So when that officer comes over the radio and he's like, I'm shot, I'm down, nobody checks on dispatch.
I can imagine what's going through your mind when you hear that.
Yeah, and it's tough. Luckily, I personally have not been involved in that, and I pray that's something I never hear over the radio. Um, I've had a foot pursuit or a high speed chase or things like that are enough to get my attention. Um, and I just pray. When they tell me like we're clear, subject's in custody, I feel like I can breathe again because you're okay.
Right.
You're gonna go home tonight. But I just wish people would really um, look at dispatch a little bit more. Like we don't see it, but we hear it, and I don't know what's worse because I've done both. So I don't know what's worse is to see it or to hear it and be on the side where you can't do anything.
Yeah, I imagine like
Besides,
one side you're 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 able to try to help as much as you possibly can, hands on, and now the other side you're kind of defenseless and can't really do much.
all you can do is listen and then
Yeah.
just pray they get there fast. So both sides are like I said, I don't know what's worse. I don't, and I would have to say dispatch is sometimes worse because you're literally sitting there for what feels like an eternity while you're waiting for help to come. And it's not. It's only, a couple minutes. But it feels like you've been sitting there for an eternity waiting for help and then just not really knowing what's really there because you only know what you're told. And the
Right.
info is only as good as the dispatcher. That's a big thing for me. So you don't know. And then when people get on the scene and they confirm it or you hear that CPR is being done on one of your own or and we're from a small area, so the chances are if you're in a dispatch center locally, you're going to know somebody eventually that's either on the bad side of 911, getting arrested for whatever reason on the law enforcement side, or Grandma Joe, which is your best friend's grandma's having a heart attack. You're going to be the one that hears that, So there's an emotional and personal attachment to a lot of things. And I think being in a rural area, that can be challenging. I didn't grow up where I am, so I don't have that attachment where a lot of people, they were born and raised in this area, so they do. And that can be challenging.
Now, sitting on that side of the phone, is it possible to say that sometimes you might feel a little helpless at times?
Oh, 100%. Because you're just listening to, somebody just beg. And I think what hits me probably harder are the elderly and their husband or wife in cardiac arrest.
Mm.
And I think what's hard is because, hey, I mean, it's a sad situation all the way around. There's nothing, but you know that man or that woman was everything to them. Like you're in your 80s now at this point. Like,
Hmm.
and to hear them do CPR or to hear them like beg for their wife to not die or their husband to not die. There's something about that that just it hits me in every bit of my feels. And I will cry because I'm
Yeah.
just like, here he is just begging his wife to come back to him. And it's hard. It's hard because you're all you can do is listen and keep doing your CPR instructions
Hmm.
but reality of the situation is it's probably not going to be a good outcome. But those are challenging personally for me.
Definitely puts a new perspective on life, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
That's why I choose to have a very quiet non-dramatic, busy life outside of everything else.
Right.
I just, I'm too old for it. I don't want it. I enjoy my peace, and I will protect my peace. It's just too much of it out there. I'm good at home. When I'm at home, it's my family, my dogs. Don't bother me. I just don't. I don't want it.
Yeah, that's what me and Brienne. We just come home, we get in our house and do things around our house and play with the dogs, and
Yep.
you know that's our downtime to get
My
away from
husband, my
this.
husband, and I'd be like, "Hey, Saturday night we should go out." Saturday night comes, and I'm like, "I'm good." He's like, "Me too." I'm like, "Great." We're we're just chilling at home. Like we just, we'll have a date night at home, and
Right.
it's what we enjoy.
Those are good memories.
Yes.
So moving on to that, you've built a beautiful life in the country with your family. How does that lifestyle help balance the stress from your job?
It is incredibly healing. Like when
Mhm.
I come home, I'm not going to say it's always easy. It's something that I've had to work at is work stays at work. And I have to leave that there because if I brought home all of that, you can't do that. So when I leave work, I try to leave it there. My husband is an incredibly supportive man. God love him. He puts up my shenanigans, so there's that. But if there is something I really just need to get off my chest, I just do, and he'll tell me like, Miranda, like I don't know what to say, but I hear you, and I'm like, that's all I need. I'm done, and then
Mhm.
we just go about our day. Like so. Life is chaotic enough. We have chose to not have chaos in our home. Um, we, I guess, are somewhat hermits. Like we really don't have people come over. I like it that way though. Like, I mean, our
Right.
kids come over and we'll have dinner. But like if you come over and we don't know you're coming, you're probably not coming in. Like we choose to just chill. It's our place of peace and I just love being able to, take my dogs out or I can actually go for a short walk and be at the waterfront. So sometimes when things are really heavy or if it's a nice day, I take the dogs, we walk down there, I'll spend time reflecting, looking at the water and just kind of maybe talking to like my dad passed away in 2021, which was a pretty that was a
Mhm.
pretty heavy blow for me. So sometimes I just go down there when life is heavy and me and my dad have a little conversation and I just kind of unwind and so it's just nice to not have craziness. And that's for us.
Just peace
It
and
is
light. Yeah,
100%. And I'm at my age and after life and everything, I will choose peace over anything else.
I totally would agree with that.
So, and I think it's important because if you let too much chaos in, this is what people don't understand when you have all this drama and chaos and negativity constantly around you, that's toxic and that's heavy. And I'm not carrying that for nobody.
Yeah,
So,
I've been through that, and I let a lot of people go because of it.
and sometimes you have to.
Yeah,
It may hurt, but afterwards you just kind of you breathe a little bit easier because it's just that toxicity is just so heavy.
right. That heavy
So,
blanket was lifted off my shoulders.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I know that from personal experience. Um, so you had said at one time that you were adopted at a young age and reconnected with your biological mom as a teenager. How has that experience shaped who you are today?
Um so that subject it can be a little bit tender for me.
Mhm.
Um but meeting her and um that part of my life is not something I will ever regret. Um I think that was a journey that I had to go down and my dad, God rest his soul, he would always tell me like I didn't want you to go. I knew it was going to end up in heartache, but at the same time you had to. I had to let you learn because he felt like if he had have, stopped it, I would have resented him. And he's probably right. So it was one of those lessons I had to live. Um, it didn't go as I had hoped, and I'd fought for about 13 years to have a relationship, and I was forced in 2000 and it was 2009 to go no contact. And she was just a toxic heavy person. Um, and I think she just taught me a lot about myself as far as maybe some of the things I don't want to be, but I was always so sympathetic to her because I don't feel like she realized how toxic she was and kind of how she pushed a lot of people away, if that makes sense. My mom died in 2024. So I lost my dad in 2021. I lost my biological mom in 2024. Um, and when she died, it was kind of weird. Like I was sad. I don't know how to describe it, but it was like I had already grieved her so much while she was alive. I didn't really know how to grieve her in death, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But my heart hurt for her that we weren't able to mend and that she didn't get a relationship with my daughter and I didn't get a mom, so that was hard for me and it was hard for me to lose her. And it was also the like finalization that like we would never fix. And the only thing I ever wanted from her was just acknowledgement that her actions hurt me. That's all I ever wanted.
Right.
Um, so that was a little bit different, but it taught me that sometimes the only closure you can get is the closure you give yourself. Um, and it I don't know, it shaped me in a lot of different ways that I don't know. It's a little bit different. So, never wished her ill. Never anything like that. I just was sad that she chose the route that she chose. And I wish that we could have done different. And I hope that she has the peace, whatever it is that she needed now, and that she can finally be at ease. My mom was a paraplegic too. She was in a drunk driving accident, and she just had a lot of health ailments kind of since then. And I don't know if her accident, because I didn't know my mom when she was in her accident. I was only 10 years old. So I don't know if her accident just mentally kind of put her in a bad spot. I don't know, but I hope that she has the peace. And I would like to think that even though she's gone, that maybe if things were different, she would have done different with me.
Mm.
So, but that's that one.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that in some ways, not to that extent, but I mean, I grew up without my father
Yeah,
in my life, and he's still alive. My mother isn't, unfortunately.
right. And
But
that's tough too because you had your mom, not your dad, but now you don't have one, you have the other. Like, do you have a relationship with your dad now, or is that?
quasi relationship, I tried, and
Yeah.
he's just, I mean, he's a good, caring, loving person. He's a really good guy. I think he's just stuck in the old-fashioned ways, and he's been married to his wife Kathy for over 40 something years,
Oh,
and
wow.
they're just set in their ways, and
Yeah.
it's hard for me to try to build a relationship with him because she always comes up.
Okay. That's fair. That was something my dad, even I didn't know. So I was adopted by my grandmother. God rest her soul. That woman was, she's a saint. I lost her in 2018, and then my dad, I never knew. I just knew when I was younger, my life was different.
Hmm.
It wasn't bad. It was different, and I didn't really know kind of how it all transpired until I was, I don't know, 17 or something. And my dad, he eventually just told it. One thing about my dad is he does not he shoots straight from the hip. It is what it is. He'll take ownership, accountability. He'll tell you, yeah, I screwed up, man. Like next. Like
Hmm.
that's just kind of how he is. And one day he just sat down and was like, he told me the story. And when I was younger, he was a drug addict, and we were taken by the state My grandmother was like, I don't think so. She adopted us. But my dad also told me that losing his kids, he hit rock bottom, and that was his oh shit moment. Like, I got to get myself together. And he went to rehab. I think he went to rehab twice. He had one failed attempt at rehab, went back to rehab. And by the time I was like, I don't know, 5, my dad was a permanent fixture in my life. And so, I mean, at 5, you're still pretty impressionable. So I
Hmm.
don't even think I realized that my dad hadn't been in my life for a couple years. I don't, my life just, my grandma made a great life for us. It was just one of those. But my dad was at every volleyball game and every softball game and every basketball game. And he was at I was in the FFA and I showed steers and pigs. And my dad was the loudest, most obnoxious parent in the stands. Okay, that was my dad. I'm like, oh gosh. But one thing, like when I got older, my dad and I, we had a lot of really, my dad was a philosopher. So we had a lot of really in depth conversations, and he owned everything. And that meant a lot to me that, like, you're standing here owning your mistakes, and you realize that when I was younger, you weren't the dad that you could have been, should have been.
Hmm.
But that's okay because he also did the most selfless thing he could have done and not drug us through his years of addiction.
Right.
So, and that's what me and him would have those conversations. And so, even when he passed away, he asked me like, "Are you're not mad at me?" And I'm like, "I'm not mad at you." Like, my dad died from stage 4 small cell lung cancer. By the time they found it, it had metastasized. He lived from 5 months from the day he was diagnosed to the day he took his last breath. Um, but that was one thing. My dad was a no regrets kind of guy, but that was one thing that he really held on to, and he needed reassurance that there was nothing. And I've never been angry at my dad for that, ever. And I like to say we kind of grew up together because he was an addict, and then of course I was growing up, so in our own way we kind of grew up together, and that was my best friend. Like, that was my rock. So
Right. It's amazing.
so
Yeah, my mother she was my rock. She told me I could, anything I do, I could put my mind to, but I didn't fully believe in myself. So, I mean, I just acted like a knucklehead. But
typical teenager song.
yeah. So, I mean, it took me to be, full grown adult to realize to, like, hey,
Mom was right.
yeah, you are a good person. You can do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, if you could go back and talk to your younger self, uh, fresh into the field at 19, what would you say to yourself?
Buckle up, little girl. It's gonna be one hell of a ride.
And
But
buckle up the straps.
you better just hang on tight because it's about to get wild. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, the memories and the good and the bad. I mean, it all comes with a lot of stuff. But I would definitely say buckle up and hold on really tight.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely sounded like a wild ride.
It has been, no doubt about it. But it's been for the most part, it's been a really fun ride. I've enjoyed 98% of it.
So you'd say that, throughout the years, you actually love what you do.
Oh, 100%. That was one of my biggest challenges about after the car accident. And I still practiced for several years after the car accident, and I just realized that some of the damages that were done put my crew at risk. Um, like, I still have a really bad pinched nerve in my neck, and sometimes my hip bothers me. And my thought of being in a full 2-story structure fire and something happening, and I can't pull one of my guys out because of my neck or my
Hmm.
hip or just things like that. It wasn't something I could live with. And if I kept doing it, then I would probably end up having surgery, and it would just be kind of irreversible. So it was my choice, but it wasn't my choice to stand down. And I was really angry because she ran the stop sign. She hit me. I was on my way home from the grocery store, and
Right.
in that moment, I felt like my whole life changed. So I was very angry, and that took a lot of working through. to get to the point where I could forgive her and understand and just figure out where my next journey was going to go that still kept me in the realm of doing medical or public safety.
Well, I'd say you probably chose wisely.
I think so.
You've saved countless lives, I can imagine. I mean, I'm not sitting behind you watching your screen, but just from hearing your story, I can imagine that you have done your job very well.
I would like to think so.
So, what keeps you passionate about this work after all these years?
Sometimes I wonder that too. Because it can beat you down. It can beat you down. But I just have this need and this drive to help people. And I wonder a lot. I think it goes back to watching my grandmother like growing up because my grandma was very, very nurturing. Like everybody had something good about him. She took care of everybody, friend or foe. And I really admired that about her. So it's just this drive to help people and make a difference. And when people call 911, they're never calling just to be like, hey, I just want to see how your day's going. That's not how that works. Um, or they never call to just say, hey, thank you. Typically not how it works is because their day is dark, scary, painful, whatever it may be, and it could be their worst nightmare and you're the person they called. So I
Right.
want to be the person they need in that moment. Um, and if I can bring them reassurance, comfort, peace, um, then my job's done. That's what I'm there to do. Um, Not saying that's always an easy thing, but um, if I can do that one time, then I'm okay with that. And I know I've made a difference more than one time.
Right.
So that's what kind of just fills that I don't know if that drive or that desire in me is to just like meeting that gentleman that was cardiac arrest, and it was just like that's why I do this, is because now I have a lifelong friend. He texts me all the time. He always says, hey, my little spicy friend. That's what but to like watch him walk in that day, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is not the man that cardiac arrest like 3 times that one day. This is not like, so it's just little things like that, or to see the baby that you helped deliver, you know? Like, I remember the first baby I delivered, dad calls and he's like a mile a minute. And I'm like, timeout, Hoss. Like, what is happening? And he tells me, and I'm like, all right, so here's what we're going to do. And then dad delivers his baby boy on the bathroom floor. I'm crying. I don't know why I'm crying, but I'm crying. Dad's crying. And then dad's like, he's not breathing. So for a moment, you talk about a hiney pucker. I'm like, oh God. And then I realized we haven't cleared the airway. We haven't done these simple things. You're doing great, Dad. We clear the airway and this baby screams.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, whoo. So it's just moments like that like that baby's crying and this man's alive and this teenager's going to walk again. It's just moments like that just kind of make it all worth it for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd say that what you do is very impactful in people's lives.
And I appreciate that. But most of us don't do it because it pays good. We do it because it's a calling for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it should be a calling. It shouldn't be something that you just grudgingly go to and just be like that. You got to be here because I got to be here.
Right. I agree. I want you to be here because you have the need and it's a calling and there's a drive for it, because if you're here because it's a paycheck, then you're dangerous and we'd prefer not to have that.
Right. Right. You want people that are passionate, kind, and willing to, step out of that realm of selfishness.
100%. Again, not saying that's an easy feat, but it's a necessary one.
Absolutely. If you had to sum up what being a dispatcher means to you in just one sentence, what would it be?
Mm. Again, I think it would just have to go back to it's a calling, and it has to be a calling. It's not a choice, it's a calling. Once you're in, you're in. You either like it or you love it.
So you're called to do this duty or you're not.
Yep. And I would prefer if you came in, you're like, yeah, this isn't for me. That's fine. No judgment, no hate. Just, you know,
At least you know now instead of when it's too late.
that's right.
It's always better to know ahead of time than when you realize it's not for you.
Oh, 100%. And I can respect that. I mean, if you come in, you're like, yeah, I'm not really feeling this. No love lost, you know?
Right, right. It's probably better off.
100%. 100%.
Well, that's pretty much all we have for today. Um, really appreciate you being on here and sharing your story. You've definitely had a very traumatic yet fulfilling life story in this short period of time that I've got to know about you here. And, I got to say, my hat's off to you. You guys do a tremendous job, and it's unfortunate that you guys are not thought of. So you are basically the unsung heroes that
Yeah,
are behind the scenes.
100%. And I really appreciate everybody who does realize that and includes dispatch in that because, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, dispatch. And it's like, no, there's a lot more to it. So we definitely appreciate just feeling seen and heard and validated and just to know that we are there. So
Right.
that means a lot.
Yeah. Well, you're very welcome. Just a quick little story. After my cousin was killed, uh, there was a dispatcher in Hillsdale County. That's where my cousin was a deputy, and a few days later, a dispatcher had passed away from cancer.
Mm,
And as I was memorializing my cousin, I had memorialized her too, and I planted uh, yellow lilies
mm-hmm.
in my cousin's garden that I built for him. So I got blue and yellow lilies out there,
That's
just to
beautiful.
honor both of their memories. And uh, I just thought that, I didn't know her personally, don't know her family, but it was still heartbreaking because
100%.
just so much sadness and grief going on, and I didn't feel like she got as much recognition with her uh, passing because my cousin's passing overshadowed everything that she had gone through.
Yeah, and that tends to happen. I look at it like this, as a dispatcher, like I'm a dispatcher here, but if there's a deputy in BFE, Louisiana, they're still part of my family. Like I think about all of them, across everywhere. And um I just kind of wanted to I'm a Jeep. I've got a Jeep. That's my thing. And I just happened to run across this family on Facebook, and I don't know what that just drew me to them, but it did, and I love her to death. It's her son was a deputy, and I might murder this somewhere in Georgia, Catawba County, Georgia, something like that. I
Mhm.
don't know how they pronounce it. It's kind of odd. And in 20, uh, 20, I think it was in 2023, he was killed in the line of duty, and he has two little girls, and their thing was, daddy loved Jeeps. And so they came up with this, and you'll have to check it out on Facebook, is Ducks. It's Ducks the number 4 dads, Ducks for Dad.
Ducks for dad.
And
Okay.
yep, and their thing was daddy loved Jeeps, and he was a cop. So they go around, and I believe it's gone international. I believe it's even gone overseas, but I know it's gone all over the United States. Was Ducks for Dad, and they go around, they duck dispatchers or EMS, fire, and it has a special tag that has his memory, his name, his date of death, um, as
Oh,
his title, and it's just a cool story. And people have gone on Facebook and they have just posted it, and they share the ducks, and they do all kinds of stuff. And it's just, here's this one deputy that not everybody knew, but now because of his little girls and their grandma, a lot of people know who he is now. So it's kind of a sad but heartwarming story at the same time
right,
to see that his name's just been spread like that in such a fun way. Down in Georgia, his mom, they did a big Jeep run in honor of him and raised a bunch of money and did a bunch of things. It's just been kind of, I don't want to say cool, but just kind of heartwarming to watch something so tragic bring so many people together.
right.
So,
Yeah, I can relate to that.
yep, unfortunately. But I think it's so important though that we always support each other. From near or
Ab-
far, I think it's an important thing.
Yeah, I think there should be more support groups out there to help people, um, whether it be crisis or just people just want to talk.
Yep.
Yeah,
Because sometimes that's all you need to do is sometimes you just need the perfect stranger. It's easier to talk to a stranger, even somebody you can't see, than it is to maybe go to somebody because you don't want to be judged or you don't want to feel like a burden. So to have somebody, I think, is definitely necessary. And I don't think it would be a horrible idea to have, you have the National 988 crisis line, but have something that is dedicated or more geared and trained for first responders.
absolutely. There should be more of that.
Yep.
I know we had interviewed a guy in Canada, and he does a peer support group up there. Uh, that became a law. They were a part of that, and um, because there was a lot of first responders committing suicide,
Hmm.
because of the job. They
Yeah.
had PTSD. They had no help, no outlets, no nothing.
And they have to continue working.
Yeah,
So you're just constantly. He's one of the first when you first introduced yourself to me and I went to your podcast. He's one of the first ones I heard, and I had no idea that I existed. But like I had my earbuds in, was like cleaning house, and I was just like, holy crap! Like this dude, like has really done phenomenal things. Like I enjoyed listening to his story. So
yeah,
and good for him for pushing it and you know them threatening to fire him or make waves. And he chose to make the waves, and I admire that because waves need to be made.
exactly,
So
exactly.
good
Yeah,
on him
because
for
if you
that.
don't make waves, then nothing gets done.
But that's the easy part. That's easier just to keep putting it under the rug and put it on the rug and pretend like these problems don't exist when they do. They're very real. So
Right.
kudos to him and everything that he's done for that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I definitely appreciate you being on here, Miranda.
Yeah,
It was fun. You're an awesome person to talk to and interview. Had a good time.
me too. And I appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate you. And again, my hat's off to you for what you do.
And thank you for what you do and bring this all to light and giving us a platform to kind of talk about it on and support that. We
We
appreciate
appreciate
that.
that. Absolutely. And you're very welcome. Um, so if you have any other friends that want to do it, just put the word out there and let them know, what it's about, or just have them listen to the podcast and they can see for themselves.
And I've
And
I've told a few people about it, and they're like, "What podcast is it?" And I tell them, and they're like, "I'm gonna go check it out." I'm like, "Do it," because there's so many podcasts, and honestly, until you introduced yourself to me, I wouldn't have known,
Yeah,
But when you introduced me and you told me about it, I was like, "Let me go check this out," and I've just been listening to it, here and there in the car when I'm cleaning house, and it's been nice to kind of hear all these different stories and perspectives and things like that. So I've enjoyed it.
yeah. That's kind of what we're trying to do is get people's different perspectives and shine light on a lot of things.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
light needs to be shown on some things for sure.
a lot of things.
No doubt. But yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely a pleasure talking to you, and I
you
hope you have
too.
a wonderful night and enjoy your family.
All right, you do the same. Thanks, Rico.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us on 8158 Stories of Sacrifice. Every story we share is a tribute to the courage and resilience of first responders and their families. If this episode impacted, encouraged, or inspired you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who supports first responders. Follow us on all social media platforms at 8158 Podcast for updates. 8158 Stories of Sacrifice is a team effort. Rico brings the stories to life through casting, writing, original music, and editing. Brianne Shipley as production manager, handling booking, social media, graphics, promotion, marketing, website management, and logo design. Please visit our website at 8158podcast.com. For questions, collaborations, or to share your story, our email address is contactus@8158podcast.com. Until next time, let's continue to honor the legacies and remember the sacrifices of those who serve, every brave man and woman on the front lines, protecting and defending us all. This is Rico signing off and honoring 8158.